All right, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well this evening. Welcome to Dudes Talking, episode 67, Victim of the Swamp, PFC Bergy interview. Mr. Bergy is here on the line with me. How are you doing this evening, sir?
Well, fine. Thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you for joining me for the interview, sir. It's been kind of a harrowing a few days or weeks, with everything that's been going on. But we'll discuss a little bit of stuff like that later, and maybe you can address the audience, with what you can say of what's been going on, But
Sure.
I kind of want to start out first with your actual, history and your relationship with General Jones and his son. And okay, let's go back. When did you join the United States Army, sir?
I enlisted in 05.
Okay.
At 39, turned
Okay.
40 at basic training, doing the live fire low crawl. That was my birthday, having shit shot at me. I hope you can say that.
Yes, you can curse. You can curse, sir. No
And
problem.
shot over my head while we're crawling. It was tough, it was really tough. It broke me pretty bad, but I made it. I completed it and graduated basic training and went on to AIT, fast track through AIT, advanced individual training.
Yes.
It was like 18 or 28 weeks that I did in like 4 weeks. Just basically tested out of everything. It was largely networks and stuff like that, computer related stuff. And then I went to my unit over at JCSE over at MacDill.
Mm-hmm.
There was one weekend stopover at the 810 MP station. So I was technically an MP for 2 days. And then they transferred me to JCSE over at MacDill, which is one of the most high-speed signal units in the U.S. Army. We provide all the JCSE at MacDill Air Force Base provides pretty much all the main comms for CENTCOM.
Yes.
And we had $400 million budget for a couple hundred guys, all satellite stuff, all the best toys. And I went on. I helped actually stand up the JCSE ARE,
Mm-hmm.
the Army Reserve element. I was one of the first 10 guys that that was attached to that unit.
Yes.
We put together like the SCIPs, the ST2IPs, which is small command and control over internet protocols, and it was like suitcase satellite dishes and networks. We could deploy out a full network of 20 or more phones, laptops on 3 different networks, and we could do that in a matter of like 15-20 minutes. Right, it was absolutely amazing. So I went out on my first deployment in 2006 to Afghanistan, came back, needed a job because I was in the reserves. That's the only one reserves were the only ones who would take a 40-year-old private.
Yes.
And and then after that, I came back and I needed a job. So someone referred me to Dynology. And within a few weeks, I was working. I went through CRC, and then I went to, which is a combat relocation center at Fort Benning, back to Fort Benning, but this time as a contractor.
Yes.
And then from there, deployed out to Iraq. That was fun. Like the first day I was there, like within an hour of putting my head in my bunk, 3 mortar rounds came in within like probably 50 meters from my transient tent that I was in.
Yes.
And
very close, very close. I mean, my stepfather-in-law, he's in the 82nd Airborne. And he's done many tours. He's a private contractor now. He works and repairs radios, and still goes overseas from time to time. And he would tell me stories of many close calls he had while serving over in both Iraq and in Afghanistan.
I still got that cadence stuck in my mind.
Yeah.
82nd, 82nd.
Yeah, he used to get mad because he used to we used to poke at him and talk. We used to call him a pair of legs. You know,
Yeah.
he'd get so
Oh
mad,
my God.
so angry.
Oh
So
yeah. So I went over there, and basically we stood up. We worked with the Force Psychological Operations Group to stand up what, to my understanding, was their first IIA program.
okay.
IIA is Interactive Internet Activities. It's it's not classified per se. It'd be really hard to classify it, but it actually, you could classify components of it.
Yes.
But because most everything's done online, right? How do you classify something that's been put online? So basically, I was tasked with trying to help convert the Force Psychological Operations Group, fourth pod, from dropping flyers from planes, which they sucked at really bad. We actually had a bunch of flyers dropped right on our DFAC at Camp Victory once. And I picked up the flyers, and it had like pictures of most wanted terrorists, and I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, didn't that guy just make me my dinner? But so we stood that up. Our contract was not renewed. We lost the bid in the following year. So that was 2007, October, that I went over there. Then the following year, in 2008, we lost the rebid on it.
Mm-hmm.
And which was disturbing to the people there, to the Force Psychological Operations Group and the people that took over the contract, because they didn't know that we were taking the intellectual property rights, the database, and all the work that the Force Psychological Operations Group had us tailor build for them, right?
Yes.
And we took it with us, leaving them empty-handed on the battlefield. And I want to keep in mind, right? There are both overt and covert. Overt being completely open, right? Completely attributable. And covert being more like your spy stuff, which is non-attribution, right? Well, so it could be used for both of those things. And there are people that will tell you right now, that will tell you today, that our team, along with, in supporting the Force Psychological Operations Group, helped reduce the violence in Iraq, potentially to the point even that allowed us to leave in 2009, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a very powerful tool, right? If you can stop a war before it starts, by understanding your enemy, by understanding them both individually, behaviorally, right? And as a large group, right? How people react as in groups and such, tribally. And so it really was a very powerful tool. And I would argue that taking that off the battlefield, probably, just so people understand, right? They think, oh, tweets or something. No, their soldiers probably died, right? Because a kid strapped on a suicide vest, or somebody put a roadside bomb out that might not have, if we had been able to communicate to them our message, right? Whether that's open or, through or whether that would be using IIA, using fake personas or whatever, it doesn't matter. If people, I guarantee you, our soldiers and Iraqis, civilians, absolutely died because we took that capability with us and left not only the Force Psychological Operations Group empty-handed with their IIA program, which they had to start back up from scratch, but also it just was a horrible thing, right? So people don't understand. I want to try to get people to understand the significance of what this was. And what we did is, when we took it with us, and the company that took over the contract for us, that they didn't, They didn't even know that they had to provide a database. They didn't even know that they had to provide the ShadowNet and ISOT or a similar version of it. That wasn't the classified name for it. That was just what we named it when we took it back to the U.S. and made it commercially available, right? And I literally discussed personally with Jim Jones, General Jones's son, many different potential uses for it. One of them being influencing U.S. elections. And at the time, I didn't know it, but at the time that discussion was happening, we were John McCain's IT company.
Yes.
For his 08 primary.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I didn't know any of this, right? Most of the 7 of the 8 years that I spent with Dynology was overseas, either in Iraq or South Korea. That's a long time too, right?
Yeah.
People have already started trying to trash me, saying, "Oh, he was divorced and destroyed his kid's life." Well, what a shitty thing to say. You know how many people who deploy overseas for years at a time end up getting divorced?
Quite
right?
frequently.
I'm not special.
Quite
it's
frequently.
hard on the family, right?
Yeah.
It's really hard. 60% of marriages end up in a divorce, period. But the numbers for deployed soldiers are much higher.
Yes,
even.
They are.
And so, yeah, I went straight from Afghanistan to South Korea. Didn't even have the ability to go home and see my kids or anything. And then 3 or 4 months into my deployment into 3 or 4 months into my deployment to South Korea, things in my marriage just fell apart. There's a lot involved. It wasn't anything I did. It wasn't anything that my ex did. It was just the same thing that happens to everybody, right? But yet we had 4 kids. I just had twin sons that were born like 10 months after I got out of basic training. You do the math on that.
Yeah.
And I had 2 daughters at the time. It was an extremely difficult time for me, right? Because I was struggling with like issues from Iraq and Afghanistan.
Being away from your family
mentally.
for so long, PTSD.
Well, I had, I had just things that I couldn't get out of my mind, right?
Yeah.
Things that today are still even difficult to talk about. So it's hard on a marriage. And then people, I mean, sick individuals would try to throw that out there to somehow, just, smear Gavin and Millie so that we don't talk about what the actual problem is. And so, in 2015, I had been over in South Korea for about 5 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Loved my job. I did have a lot of issues, sure, right? I'm not going to put myself out there as being somebody perfect by any means. Things really went downhill for me after my divorce. I made some, let's say, bad decisions after that.
Yeah.
But I always followed the rules, right? Like, I swear to God, okay, true story. It's completely verifiable. When I met my second wife, she was Russian, and we were only married for a couple weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
I met her on the day that my first wife had changed her profile on Facebook from married to divorced. And again, that just goes to tell you the power of what social media can be, right? Because when I saw that click in 2010, it was crushing, right? I mean, it was crushing. So I go out and do what every, normal male does, and got drunk as hell to where I could hardly stand in Itaewon, South Korea, and end up at this place called Bar Naked.
Yeah.
It wasn't a strip bar is just what the name of the bar. And I met this girl, and we talk. We don't do anything, right? We exchange business cards. I suck at like dating and stuff. I'm not a player, right? We exchange business cards, and so about a week or so later, she sends me a text, and when I got the text, and before I even went out with her, I filled out a form, and I'm like probably the only one in the DoD that's actually ever filled one of these out. You're required to, but nobody does, right? And I filled out a memorandum of contact with a foreign national, right? And so we go out a couple times. Again, don't do anything. And I file a form called, I filed a memorandum of close continuous contact, right? No relationship or anything. And as time goes by, I literally go from memorandum of close continuous relationship, right? So at every stage I meet this, I'm at with this foreign national, I'm filling out these papers and submitting them to the security officer with JA, right? I mean, I play by the rules, right? So in 2015, I actually probably started like 2013, but we'll skip through that. Problems really started with like the fraud, waste, and abuse. I really started seeing the problems around 2013, and then but then it all kind of came to which when I reported them, I had all of my responsibilities taken away for almost a year and a half, right? All total, to where I was getting paid $120,000 a year, but they wouldn't let me meet or speak with any of our clients being government employees, because of like, if they wanted to do something that was illegal, I wouldn't do it, right? So finally, and this guy, and actually, so this guy wants me to, this GS division chief wants me to give him classified access to give him administrative access to a classified network. And I'm like, okay, no problem, but we need this documentation. It's required, right? I can't, it's required. I'm not going to jail for you. But there are people that will, right? Most people that I worked with absolutely would. And that's sad. It really is a telling state of our national security. People should listen. So I refused to do that. He screamed, he yelled so loud, threatening to have me fired if I didn't give him access to the network, that the contractor next to me hears it, and then he files a complaint along with me. And the next day, they tell me that they are modifying the contract, removing only the requirements for my position. And that was interesting because the other guy that filed the complaint, he withdrew his complaint. He kept his job, right? So again, right, national security, access to a classified network is being. I'm trying to do my job. It's what you taxpayers paid me $120,000 a year to do. And so within a couple days after me being forced to leave, right? There's no more position for me. Within a couple of days being forced to leave, they modify the contract back to its original requirements, and I was replaced, right? Does any of that sound legal?
To me, no, it doesn't. No.
No. I mean, if you take it on its face is correct, which it's all verifiable. I filed a detailed complaints right then. I mean, I've got documentation for everything.
If anybody put in like a Freedom of Information Act request on your career, we would assume that this paperwork would show up, right? Or at least some of it would.
Absolutely. And you don't even need to do, if you want to verify my stuff, like I have a signed DOD memorandum complimenting me for the work that I did, which has been on my LinkedIn since I think 2008, complimenting me for the work that I did on a classified IIA mission, right, in Iraq. So you can certainly verify my credentials, and I put that right out there along with the all the information to it, right? And it's a digitally signed document. So, you know, it's easy to verify what I'm saying. Certain things, obviously, I can't verify, but like when I put up a screenshot of the ShadowNet or the flyer for the ShadowNet with trademark Dynology, well, if you can't look at my, you can't look at my that signed DOD memorandum by the IIA chief, right? And then look at and say, well, okay, yeah, I mean, it's legit.
So let me ask you something real quick, Bergy, real quick. When I was doing research on Jones, it came up that he had partnered with Call of Duty with Activision. Okay, now I'm a gamer. I've been playing games since I was a kid, and I remember Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell. It came out when I was in high school, and a part of that game was Shadowdead. So who developed the name Shadowdead? You know, was it anybody who may have been a fan of that game by chance? I'm just curious to see.
I wouldn't have any information on that.
Okay.
But I do find it very troubling that someone like General Jones or his son, actually his son is the president. So the guy that did this to me, to our country, to national security, right? The guy that did that is the president of ClearForce. ClearForce is a basically V2.0 of ShadowNet, right? Well, to the extent that I was told by Jim, right? Because I didn't work on the ClearForce app. I was in Korea when that was going on, but they called me on several occasions, asking me information, and I helped them to that extent. But so the very core of the database component, the behavioral and social media collection stuff, that's used in ClearForce, was funded by taxpayers, right? It was from a DoD contract. Which people should find frightening, you know. So when you have a company like ClearForce, whose board of directors consists of like the founders of Equifax and another like large medical records reporting thing, and the, of course, board of directors is sitting on the board of Call of Duty. Right?
Yes, the Call of Duty endowment.
Endowment, right?
Yeah, where they're giving money.
Think of the data that see, and it's all about the data, right? See, data is more valuable than anything today. It's more valuable than oil. It's, you know, the more solid and the more the more solid provenance of the data, the more value it is, right? Just look at what these candidates pay for. You know, they'll pay $1 or $2 a piece sometimes for decent quality contact information for their constituents, right?
Yes.
But you know, for good, high quality contact information, you can pay, you know, 10, 12, you know, sky's the limit per person, right?
Yeah.
So think of the value of that. It's kind of like, so when you bring in medical data, when you bring in people's financial data, like from Equifax, when you bring in all of their social media, right, and you bring in their friends, and you bring in their travel records, all of this, by the way, is listed on ClearForce's website.
So it's like and I've seen it. So it's like it's almost like the social credit score network that they developed in China, but it's already happening here within the United States.
Interesting, you should say that, right? Because if you go to their website, you'll see that in like 2018, they had a huge, like, multi-billion-dollar investment by a company called Centricus, which is a UK investment firm. Great. So now UK has ownership of ClearForce, a DoD, built from a DoD weapon, right? And I mean, it's like all right there on their website. It doesn't even, you don't need to do a FOIA.
Oh, interesting. When I click on and look at their board of directors, no results found, huh?
What's that?
When I went to the ClearForce board of directors, no results found now. So let's see if they scrubbed the Internet Wayback Machine by chance.
Oh, are you telling me that they took the board of directors?
Yeah, they did. No results found. Yes, I can show it right now to everybody looking.
Oh my God.
Let me ask you
something. Are you serious?
Yeah.
The ClearForce site? Are you going right from the link? The site's up, right?
Yeah, the site's up.
Just not the board of directors?
No.
Like with Hayden and Jones? Ouch. No. Well, that must have stung.
Clearforce.com is the correct webpage, right? Just want to make sure I'm at the right.
Yes, sir. Clearforce.com.
Okay.
But within a few weeks of the investment that Centricus made, a Chinese-owned firm invests $15 billion into Centricus. So I would argue they probably have, China really owns ClearForce now, wouldn't it? In a way,
possibly.
Well, isn't our government, isn't the Justice Department constantly telling us that one of the ways China's stealing our secrets is by investing and putting members on the board of American-owned companies, correct?
Yeah, Russia is too, though, and Israel to some degree.
Yeah, but this specifically, this company invested $15 billion into Centricus a couple weeks after Centricus invested into ClearForce. I would argue that if the government is being serious, that's one of the ways that China is getting access to our intellectual property, then that right there should be a red flag, you would think. Something, I mean, it's like, wow, that's not good. This, again.
All right, I was able to pull it up on. Bring it up on the Internet Wayback Machine, so there still is a copy. So you got James L. Jones, General Michael Hayden, Thomas J. Miller. So it still exists, but they have taken it down since then.
They should know better than that. But I bet you, though, I've seen stuff disappear off Wayback, so...
Yeah, I have too as well. As a researcher, I have too. Someone asked in the chat, how long were you, how many years were you within the military? And you would assume you would have, like my stepfather-in-law received your DD Form 214, right? For discharge, release from the military, I guess would be the correct terminology.
Sure. And several people have actually, like Ann Vandersteel, I provided her, several journalists have verified my DD-214. I put it right out there for them. Funny story. Okay, so I'm in for 2 years. When I originally enlisted, it was supposed to come with a $25,000 signing bonus, right? But because I only spent 1 weekend at the unit that I had originally enlisted under,
yes,
the Army signing bonus is actually specific to the unit. And when I left, they're like, "Oh, too bad, you don't get that now." I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
So when I was deployed over in Afghanistan, they screwed up my orders. And I've got a wife and 4 kids, a minivan, a home back in the States, right?
Yes.
And I'm a PFC in Afghanistan, not making a lot of money. You don't go in there to make money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so here I am, a PFC.
Mr. Bergy, you there?
What?
I lost
what's
you there
that?
I lost you there for a minute. You said
Okay,
here
yeah.
you are, Private First Class Bergy.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I was making about maybe $2,400, I think, after taxes. That included like combat hazard duty pay. And they screwed up my orders. And the second lieutenant, or first lieutenant, or second, don't remember if he was a butter bar or just first lieutenant, but he comes in and he says, Bergy, we screwed up your orders, so you're not going to get paid for the rest of for your last month in Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
But here's a phone number to call to take out a low-interest loan to help your family get by. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So I'm like, I've been over there like 4 months, and my church back home had helped raise money even to help my wife and kids because we were so tight on money, right?
Mm-hmm.
While I was deployed, it was amazing. My community came together. It was so cool.
That was good of them.
And I mean, so much of this story is great, but then these bad people just ruined it, right? So so he tells me you're not getting paid, and so I'm like, listen, I can't be over here not getting paid. And so I made the number one rule that you don't do. I broke the number one rule. You don't go over your chain of command, and I did. I went to the IG on base, and these 2 colonels looked at me when I told them what happened. They said, "Are you freaking kidding me? Get in the car." And they drove me over to that lieutenant and said, "You better said nobody on my base is going to be here not getting paid." He said, "You got till Friday to fix this, otherwise you're sending him home." And I'm like, I don't want to go home. I volunteered for this. We're doing good work, right? Mm-hmm. And so they couldn't fix it. So they send me home, but it took me 30 days. I spent weeks in a transient tent in one of the stands. I don't even remember. And spent several weeks in a 200-man transient tent. I ended up getting back to Florida, to MacDill, the same day the rest of my team did that left 30 days later, right? Yeah. It was a 4-man team that we deployed out with, myself and 3 other guys. And when I got back, they put me on shit duty. They just did everything. And because there was an IG thing, and this could jeopardize the careers of the colonel with our unit and that lieutenant, right?
Yeah.
So they wouldn't take me off orders. And now I'm on orders at MacDill, basically sweeping up around the place, doing nothing. Everybody that I was deployed with had already been released off orders. They left me on orders. And now I'm making like maybe $1,600 a month after take home. How the hell am I supposed to live off that, right? Mm-hmm. And so finally I said, I went to him and I said, look, I can't, you're killing me. I can't survive. I said, I got to get it. I said, I have this job opportunity with Dynology overseas, but I can't go because you guys still have me on orders here on base at MacDill. And I'm in a reserve, right? And so they go, okay, well, tell you what, you drop the IG complaint, and not only will we let you go over to Iraq, we'll put you in IRR. Now, keep in mind, I've just been 2 years in the Army, but because they said that because they screwed up and I didn't get that $25,000, I met the requirements to complete my duty. And to be honest with you, I was struggling with it too, right? Because maintaining the PT
Yeah.
requirements when you're 40 some years old is really tough. I'm not going to lie.
So let me
I
let
mean,
me
I was
ask you something real quick,
really good, but
Bergy,
not
to
with PT.
pertain
Yes,
yeah
sir.
pertaining to that. What was why did you join? In the military in the first place, knowing that like you said, private. You got a family. You got a wife. You got kids. Being able to provide for them and support them, and privates
Mhm.
don't make a lot of money. They don't. They make very
Yeah,
little. It's
I
very. I
didn't
mean,
really
you.
think that out very well. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
I'm a very, I went to I went I went to Disney World a week after 9/11, right?
Mhm.
And it was empty. There was a couple hundred people in the whole park, and I'm looking around at, like, you know all the stuff that was going on, and I wanted to do something, right?
Mhm.
And I I thought I had something to offer the fight, right?
Yeah.
Because I have kids. I don't want to worry about I don't want to worry about them shopping at our mall and having somebody blow it up, right?
Mhm.
I want to take the fight to the enemy so they don't come back here and bring it to us. And so I didn't really think that much about, like, I didn't even probably look at the pay. Um, and it was just, and I spoke to my wife, and
Mhm.
she was like, "Well, it's going to be tough, right? But I support you." So she supported me with it. Um, we didn't know how to, and certainly, if I were to have allowed to just deploy like I was supposed to, right? We would have been fine.
Yeah.
If I could have came back and gotten off of orders and gone back to work with my 9 to 5 job, because I was a network administrator for a heart and vascular clinic,
Mhm.
and that heart and vascular clinic fired me when I enlisted, right?
Mhm.
Which is a violation of the Soldiers and Sailors Act.
Yeah.
And so I sued them. And it's actually there was a big article in the St. Pete Times that's gone from their archive, but it is still in Google's Wayback Machine,
Mhm.
right? So I do have snapshots of that, and I put them out once in a while. Bound for boot camp, he's booted from his job. That was the title of it. And I won that lawsuit, right?
Mhm.
But I came back, and I didn't have the nice paying job that I had. I thought I'd be able to just enlist in the Army, go to deployments, right? Come back to my job
Mhm.
as I was in IT. I was the network administrator for a big heart and vascular clinic. I made pretty good money. It was, definitely enough to survive on and such. Um, and it, so that's probably, that's why it would have worked out fine had it been done by the rules, right? But when people start changing the rules, like someone screws up your orders and you're not getting paid for a month,
Mhm.
that throws a wrench in it, because we could survive on that. I survived just fine going through basic training, right? Financially, we did. Not great, but we paid all our bills, right? And again, the plan was to come back, go back to work. So yeah, so a lot of things, didn't work out like I had planned when I said, "Hey, I'm going to enlist." But
I've actually found the
so,
article.
so that's
I
why.
had to search it in quotation marks, but I found it. Tampa Bay
Mhm.
Times. Bound for boot
There
camp.
you
He's
go.
booted from his job by Candace Radu. Published November
Right.
7th, 2005.
Read the first paragraph, would you?
He knows it's risky. At 39, he's not a young man anymore. He's got 2 little girls, a loving wife, a nice house in Newport Richey. And until he decided to enlist in the Army Reserves a few weeks ago, Patrick Bergy says he had a good job.
Yeah. So I did, and anybody who questions, what part of my story do you want to question? Because when you start just nitpicking it, like, I don't know, nobody ever really questioned anything with it, to be honest with you. I'd love, actually, for somebody to challenge me on any of this. They run from it, right?
Yeah.
And I see why. I see why all of these people. I see why Dan Bongino was afraid to do it, and all these other people, because look what happened to Millie and Gavin, right? Look what happened to me, right? When you go against these people,
Yeah.
they have their system in place, and you think that you're going to be protected. You think that you've made all of these sacrifices for your country, and that your country is going to stand behind you when you do the right thing, but they don't, man, they don't. And it's the worst thing in the world. That's probably one of the hardest things that I had to deal with, was being, let down, thrown under the bus by the leadership, going all the way up to Obama's national security advisor. These aren't small people, right? The division chief, J8 3 division chief, the director of J8, the deputy director of J8, every single one of them was named in my complaint for fraud, waste, and abuse, for things that were just blow your mind.
Were you given official whistleblower status, Bergy, by chance? Because I did research. I am on the Finders case, and Ramon J. Martinez, he worked for the United States Customs Service, and they tried to railroad him for being a whistleblower about that case through the release of his report of investigation. And there was a complaint that was filed, and there was a lawsuit that stemmed from that. Were you given whistleblower status by chance? Were you able to earn that? I don't know if you can if you're a contractor. Is it possible? I know that if you're in the military or a part of a corporation, you can. But were you given official status, or because of the law, did they not give you official status as a whistleblower and or the protection?
In 2013, in 2013, after the Edward Snowden issue release, right? They added contractors and subcontractors under the protections of whistleblower, right? So if you go to the DOJ's website, it says right at the top of the page, yay, contractors and subcontractors are protected under the whistleblower protection, right?
Interesting. Okay.
But they should have put a little asterisk there, because they aren't, right? If your contract was started before they changed that rule, and no modifications, significant modifications have been made to it, then you're not protected, which makes no sense to me. Why would they make a rule like that? You've got contracts with like IBM that have been renewed going back to the 70s. None of those people would be covered today on it, right?
Yeah.
Yet you would think. So they don't put that asterisk there. I thought I was protected. I went to the site. But that's what they told me. And I have the IG complaint signed, digitally signed and stamped by the Department of Justice, or the Department of whoever. I think it was DOJ IG. It's on my website. You can see it. You can easily verify it. And they said, your whistleblower retaliation complaint against your employer, Dynology. So that should be verification that my employer was Dynology, right?
Yes.
And they said that, you're not protected under whistleblower status because your contract began before that.
Yeah.
So I was screwed, right? And when I went to apply, they even screwed me out of unemployment insurance, 8 years with them. And they said that I quit. I didn't quit. Yeah, they modified the contract. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a position to fill. And when I came back, they said they didn't have a contract to put me on. So generally, when that happens, if you can't fulfill that, then they're responsible for providing unemployment. But no, they screwed me out of that. Said that I quit. Does any of that I mentioned sound like me actually voluntarily quitting?
No.
Oh, it was constructively terminated. I mean, zero question about it. So, yep.
Yeah,
That's it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I wanted to ask you that question because whistleblowers do deserve. I do think that the Whistleblower Protection Act isn't as strong as I would like it to be. I don't think it protects people and allows them to come out as whistleblowers. I don't think so.
Well, so get this, right? These are connected. That Edward Snowden thing, which is ironic because Snowden thought that he was going to help Americans' privacy. When Snowden did that, Jones and General Jones, Hayden, and others, national security people, made recommendations and modified the NISPOM requirements. I can't think of what the acronym stands for. NISPOM, but it's kind of like the OSHA of clearances, right? So you have to maintain compliance to NISPOM if you're a company or a government organization that has employees that have national security clearances, right?
Yes.
So when Snowden does that, rather than, so they say they went and added the subcontractors on and stuff, right, under the protections, but they didn't, right? They really didn't. And what they did instead was they modified the NISPOM requirements to requiring predictive behavioral things put in place to meet the NISPOM compliance if you have a cleared employee. So they actually changed the law because of Snowden, didn't fix whistleblowers, which is actually, I would argue, how you actually fix the problem, but instead said, hey, I got a better idea. Let's make a minority report like predictive analytics. And so they turned around, they modified the NISPOM requirements and then turned around and provided a company that licenses the compliance for you, right? That's kind of brilliant, isn't it? Yeah. You got to admit. They changed the law requiring certain things. It's like when they changed the law to require seat belts, then there was only one place you could buy the seat belts from, was the place that changed the law to require seat belts, right? I mean, it's ridiculous. But that's how they did it. So instead of fixing the whistleblowers, what Snowden ended up doing was he ended up creating ClearForce, predictive minority report, like predictive behavioral analytics that absolutely scan through your most personal private stuff and determines predictively if you're likely to steal or leak. And when you go to apply for a job, this isn't just for people with clearances, although that's scary. And think about this. When President Trump was talking about, he's like, too many people have clearances. Do you realize what impact that would have had? Right? So you're looking for motive on taking Trump out. How about, eliminating all these clearances for these people? And then they wouldn't be able to think of how much they would have lost with just the NISPOM compliance alone. You're talking that I would suspect in the tens of millions, possibly hundreds. I don't know. But so great job, Snowden.
You're right. But then again, I mean, they don't want real whistleblowers, or whistleblowers and genuine to come out anyway. Got a couple of questions in the chat. Exactly. Mark asked, Snowden created this with a question mark?
Yeah, not intentionally, but you get what I'm saying, right? He does this to try to protect America from this incredibly invasive privacy issues. And then he ends up creating ClearForce in the process.
Yes. By chain of events is what you mean.
But it is. Yeah, right? He didn't plan it, but boy, talk about something not working out the way you planned. He ended up creating I
mean, it ends up happening. You kind of it did. Sometimes you wonder if the deep state uses problem reaction solution. You know,
It's not
to try to
the
implement
state
things
that
in.
uses this. Think about it. One of the biggest, and I talked to Jim about this. They wanted to use the shadow net for lobbying, and Jones
Interesting,
Group,
and I
even,
think they did. I think they did to some degree, and other programs. I think the operations that were run on Cambridge Analytica were used for that too as well. You know.
Oh, but and I didn't even know this at the time. I knew nothing about Jones Group International, but Jones Group International is one of the largest energy lobbies, Saudi energy lobbies in D.C.
Yeah.
And they own the shadow net. So, real big problem with using it to influence the outcome of elections. We got that noted. I think pretty much everybody agrees on that. That's what we spent the last 5 years bitching at Trump about, saying that the Russians did it to us, when Obama's national security advisors using it for lobbying.
Yeah.
Right? So that's even a bigger problem, because if they're using the shadow net for lobbying, doesn't that kind of take your voice away? Lobbying is an important part of our Constitution, right? Of our democratic republic, because it allows collectively voices to be heard, right?
Yes.
The NRA lobby, like it or not, gives a much stronger voice than one person could have, and that's kind of okay, right? I think
to some degree, but the problem with lobbying is the bigger the organization and the more people involved, in my opinion, the more likely it can become corrupt. I mean, I am for Second Amendment rights and everything. Don't get me wrong by that, but the bigger the bigger a lobbying group gets, in my opinion, the more likely it is to become, corrupt and self-serving, and less serving of the people that they're, trying to lobby for on the behalf.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. Money corrupts, and when you look at the salaries, right? You look at the salaries of some of these journalists, and you ask yourself, are they going to risk giving up their multi-million-dollar salaries to actually report the truth? Or are you, a listener, going to never get the full story because they're holding that over their head, that and NDAs?
True.
Why should a journalist ever have to sign an NDA? Can you explain that to me? That just sounds fishy as shit.
To me, it goes against the First Amendment, in my opinion.
Yeah, I want a journalist. If you're a journalist, even though you work for a company, you should never sign a paper, a non-disclosure, right? What you should be able to. You're a freaking journalist, right? It's a constitutionally protection. It's a constitutional protection, freedom of the press.
Yeah.
And aren't you silencing that with these NDAs, right?
Well, corporations
I had to freaking sign an NDA when I walked into InfoWars.
And the thing is corporations are, as much as I despise it, the First Amendment only mainly deals with government and local governments and state governments. Corporations are allowed to do that, even though I find it to be abhorrent.
Yeah. And I get it. If you're like a corporation and you're a tech company or something, great. Tech companies aren't listed in the Constitution with protections along with it doesn't say, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and freedom of Facebook. No, it doesn't. So you can just let them do what they want. If that's what they want to do, that's fine. But when it comes to journalism, I think that's a big problem. What do you got to hide, right? Because you're out there reporting everybody else's stuff. So, but if somebody's like, abusing children, or if somebody, women, right? Raping women or doing whatever, right? You should be able to report that if you work at a news organization, but you couldn't because you're under a non-disclosure, right?
Yes.
I think that's a bad thing, but it's off the subject. But
So,
I never ran into that until I went to InfoWars, and I'm like, why the hell would I sign this? Why would you have me sign this? So,
yeah, that's
okay,
interesting.
I did anyway. So,
That's very interesting. So a couple more questions. Kevin asked, in one of your previous streams, you mentioned that you were a verified whistleblower.
Mhm.
Are you?
Well, I mean, what's verified? I did submit, and you've seen that, and
Mhm.
it's on there, the IG for the whistleblower protection for wrongful termination.
Yeah.
So that's listed there. So I guess I'm a failed one. But I filed a Ketam lawsuit in D.C. back in January.
Yes.
And Ketam is like the Lincoln Law thing,
Mhm.
started back Abraham Lincoln times to keep contractors from, giving you 100 rounds of ammunition that they made, but charging you for 1,000, right? So if you found corruption, fraud, waste, or abuse with contracting and such, the Lincoln Law, the Ketam law, was used to help combat that. So I filed that, went through the process with that, included it even. I even had it include, because so many people in my Ketam were actually the people behind the impeachment. Lindsey Graham, Adam Schiff, all of these people are listed in my Ketam, right? As people that I went to, provided them information, and then either did nothing or said they were going to do something and then did nothing. Or even worse, like Judge Janine Pirro. She tells me, she gets my story, and then she sends me a text message back saying, I'm going to speak to Congressman Nunes on this, who, by the way, Congressman Nunes was at the time like the head of the Intel committee that, as a whistleblower, I would go to, right? So he's literally in my chain of command. She went to him, and I never heard from her again. Never heard from Nunes again. And my congressman had sent multiple memorandums of record stating everything I've stated tonight, sworn, signed, under oath, and never responded back. Matt Gaetz, I spoke to him on his inauguration day, told him, listen, I built a shadow net for Obama. It's the same thing, same thing we indicted the Russians for. You need to speak to me. I give him, and he's like, wow. And we're there with like mutual friends. So he should believe that I'm at least, and he was like, man, we got to talk about this. Well, he never gets back to me. So then that same mutual friend ended up going out to lunch with him a few months later, brings him a copy of my case and says, hey, you've never contacted Bergy back. He wanted to give you this and say, hey, could you please call him back? And George Colella gave him that. He was one of the founders of Bikers for Trump, Bikers for 45, right? George gives him that, takes his picture with him holding it. Matt Gaetz holding it, right? And that's a couple of years ago. I've never heard back from him, right? So, but the problem is one of the things I discussed with Jim was, how, using it to selling the shadow net to influence elections in the U.S. And that was back in 08 or 09. And so I'm kind of thinking, and this is just, I always like to separate facts from opinion, or as a subject matter expert, my best guess on something. My best guess on something is that a lot of people in Congress who don't, in both, in the Congress, who have been keeping this quiet, actually used either the shadow net or another, because it's a whole market out there now, right?
Yes.
And so either use the shadow net or another version of it on the market, like McChrystal has his own version, right?
What's
And use that
McChrystal's own version? I'm
to win
curious.
their election. that they're in their seats right now.
What's McChrystal's version? Do you know the name of it by chance?
No, I know nothing about it other than I don't think, from what I've seen in reported articles, that Jones and McChrystal were friends. I think they actually were. Oh, they might have been kind of friends.
Because that was one of my questions. Was did they know each other? Did you ever meet McChrystal by chance?
Yeah, they were like Coke and Pepsi, right? They have the same tasting product, just has a different name. Never met McChrystal. Actually, I think I have. I think I met McChrystal and talked to him at our little break area when I was in Kandahar.
Interesting.
So I think actually I did. We talked about a couple books that were in there. It was in the MWR at our base in Kandahar.
What about Flynn? Did you ever meet Flynn by chance?
I did not meet him, but he responded to a DM that I sent him asking for his help in March of 2017. Think about that date.
Okay, and what did he say by chance?
He said something to the effect of, basically, wow, that sorry to hear that. Have you tried reaching out to Judicial Watch? Named a couple different things.
Interesting. And so you mentioned Tom Fitton's branch, Judicial Watch.
Don't quote me, Judicial. Don't quote me Tom Fitton's, right? To one of those, or a couple of those.
Okay.
And I responded back that, yeah, I have, and they aren't touching it. They won't return my calls. I really could use your help, sir. I really need your help, sir. But he didn't. So I don't know why. I think if somebody like General Flynn would have said, hey, this PFC needs our help, and helped me, that a lot of things would have been different. Imagine if we were talking about the shadow net before the 2018 midterms instead of Trump's impeachment or Russia, right? Imagine if when I went to Lindsey Graham 2 months, month and a half, 2 months at an event that he did in Orlando, drove all the way to Orlando, because I like to look people in the eye and shake their hand.
Yeah.
Right? Because people don't believe you when you send them an email. So I rode all the way. I rode with Bikers for Trump.
Yeah.
They actually have a newspaper took a picture of us there, on me and another guy on my bike. And I like to talk. I like to look them in the eye, shake their hand, and hear them say. And Lindsey Graham said, "Wow, we need to talk. Give your information." And I gave him a copy of my book to his assistant, and said, "We will get back. We're going to get back to you on this." And then never heard from him again. And then a year later, I drive in December of 2018. In December of 2019, I drive to D.C. and walk into the Senate Judiciary Committee's office and say, "Hey guys, here's a official complaint that memorandum of record that was not only faxed to you guys but handed to Lindsey Graham.
Yeah.
Why hasn't anybody ever gotten back to me?" And so they had two agents take me into a separate room, and about 45 minutes took notes and listened to everything I had to say. And they said, "We will be getting back with you shortly." Well, that was a year and a half ago. What's their definition of shortly? I don't know. But
maybe it takes some time. Maybe a year and a half is fine.
Yeah. So so that was a problem. And it's funny because I went back to them in January. I went physically to them, the judiciary, in January of 2020. And that's what I'm going to be doing on Friday. I'm driving to DC. And I'm not Snowden, right? I never released anything classified. I released information about flyers that we've literally handed out publicly, right?
Yes.
And then I explain my background, and then I let people interpret from there, right?
Yes.
But no, I said I'm going to go back there on Friday, and Millie and Gavin and Tori and a bunch of other people, and I haven't even put this out on. This is the first time I've spoken about it publicly. We're going to try to get a rally going there in front of Congress, and then I'm going to go in with the documents again. Well, actually, I don't have documents with me, but I'm going to go in there again. I don't need to bring them the third copy, right, or the fifth copy. But I'm going to go in there and say, "Hey, I'm back. Did you miss me?"
Yeah.
Because for some reason or another, a journalist was able to investigate my claims and produce a documentary in less time than you guys have had to call me back since I drove there and spoke to you. So what is up with that, right? I mean, doesn't anybody at least have a responsibility to call somebody back and say, hey, we're not going to, if you call me back and tell me that we're not going to do something because of this, right? Mm-hmm. Then I can figure out how to fix this, right? If you just never call me back, anybody, then what am I supposed to think? And look at how corrupt our government is. Look at how corrupt our Department of Justice is with, Page and Stroke and Brennan and all these people, right?
Yeah.
All these people who clearly abuse the system for political means. Are you telling me that somehow they would be above utilizing the shadow net?
Yes.
And, so it's like, what am I supposed to be led to believe, right?
Yeah.
Am I supposed to just be led to believe they're incompetent? Well, yeah, right? Just visit the DMV. But these guys aren't the DMV. These guys are supposed to be protecting our national security, not my old Honda.
Yes, very much so.
So it's not, it's just like, so I'm driving back there, and I'm really hoping that we can, I've just been overwhelmed finally. Thank God that a journalist had the guts to put this together and get this out. Not only did she put this together and put it out truthfully, at least everything that I told her was truthful and provided all full information, right? And Tori's been doing this for a long time. I don't speak to other people's stuff, though. How can I do that, right? I don't. But I do know that Tori has suffered a lot in the last few years of her life for coming forward when she saw something wrong. And so to that, she has my 1,000% respect. And for anybody out there that are trashing her, it just makes me want to puke, right? Because if you've ever suffered, when Sarah Carter sent me that message back saying that, oh, I know this is difficult on you. We're going to be running your story next week. I've spoken to Judge Janine. We're going to be rolling it out through the week next week. When she says that I know you've been suffering, it's because she knew I was in a freaking homeless shelter, in the veterans section of a homeless shelter. You don't understand what these people have done to my life, man.
Yeah.
And I went from leaving my job to, like Pat Tillman, only I'm not Pat Tillman, right? I'm Pat Bergy. I have zero PT skills that he does, and he was just an amazing man. I don't even want to, I just want to say, he was actually somebody that was one of the inspirations for me to do this. Him and a friend of mine, Fred Taylor, who was a 3-time Purple Heart recipient. I used to look on Fred's wall. He was our next door neighbor, and I'd look on Fred's wall and saw all the sacrifices that he's made for our country, and I'm like, I hadn't done that. I need to do that. I just felt like I needed to do that. And so, when I first went to the recruiter's office, I was actually too old. They hadn't raised the enlistment age cutoff was 35. And they actually called me back a couple months later, which was like a month or 2 months before my birthday, and said they just raised the recruitment age to 39, but you're turning 40 in 2 months, so you're going to have to go on the next bus if you're going to want to do this. And so I was on the next bus, man, and it was great, right? I've done some amazing things. I've saved lives. I've brought in fire support. I worked intelligence surveillance, or ISR, intelligence surveillance reconnaissance, when I was in Afghanistan, right? Tip of the spear. I was one of like 50 guys at the fusion cell, the Kandahar fusion cell, right?
Alex Jones also says he's tip of the spear too. So just to put that out there.
He is. It's just a broken spear. But yeah, it's the tip of the broken spear. Right? So all these amazing things that I've managed, that I've done, and I'm so proud of, and it was all taken away, right? Why Americans should be outraged at that. If you have any love for your country, if you have any love for your military, you need to ask this 4-star general, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, sir, please answer this PFC's claims against you, because he's, basically saying that you're a piece of crap, and you need to answer him. Why are you being such a coward? You're a 4-star general. Why are you afraid of a freaking private? Why won't you answer me? Why won't you answer my claims? I dare you. And he won't. Right? And if you're an American and you're a patriot and you love your country, you don't attack Millie and Gavin, the people who actually had the guts to put this out. She's probably going to lose her job at InfoWars.
She wasn't. Alex Jones claims she was a private contractor now, that she wasn't working for InfoWars anymore. At least that's what he claims.
Which makes me want to puke, right? Because even though she was a contractor, was she a contractor when she puts something out and it's really big and it helps him and he's making millions of dollars on it? He's not a contractor. He's like, yeah, this is Millie. She's, but when something's bad and you want to distance yourself, oh yeah, no, she's just a contractor. No, she's a mother who was just torn away from her children within minutes of uploading this documentary. And instead of just, it's either a coincidence, because red herrings, right? These things happen. Could be a coincidence, or it was the same thing that happened to me by very powerful people that can manipulate the system any way they want, and no one's going to do anything to protect them. Bongino, Pirro, Carter, they're not going to do anything because they're afraid of what he's going to do, or people like him will do to them. They'll destroy them, right? So that's why our country's so jacked up right now, because it's profit before patriotism. It's company before country.
Very true. Yeah.
And we need to put a freaking stop to that, right? Because there are good people that work in our military that make such sacrifices. And there are good people in journalism, right? I don't care if Millie was the worst journalist on the planet up until the day that the worst, most lying, despicable journalist on the planet up until the day she released this documentary that exposed this, because that makes her amazing. That makes her that's what we have our constitution. That's what we have the freedom of press for, right? So to see people attack her makes me so sad, man. I mean, it hurts. It hurts. Why would they do that? Why do people attack her? Why not say, well, instead, just take a time out from attacking her and go to Clear Force's website, right?
But are
Say,
people
wow, what's
people
worse for our country? Going to Clear Force's website and look at what they're doing. They're determining if you get a job or not based on an algorithm they control. Or Millie and Gavin.
But
what could possibly be a bigger threat to our country?
But Patrick, let me ask you something, okay? Now,
this stuff really pisses me off.
Within InfoWars, okay? Mm-hmm. And of course, you know, the Mercer family, because Cambridge Analytica was founded by Stephen K. Bannon. It was founded by the Mercer, Robert Mercer. It was also Michael Flynn was high up in the executive board of Cambridge Analytica. He didn't initially disclose that in his forms in 2016.
I don't even know those things. I didn't even know that. I just learned that now.
And later he disclosed it once he was called on it. Okay, and I know you did. I'm just saying those things. I'm letting you know.
I've learned a lot of this stuff outside of what I physically did. I'm just kind of I've been putting all of this together using a combination of what I personally knew and experienced and media reports. People like Bongino. I put most of the stuff together, the connections to the ShadowNet and the Russian collusion, together with people from listening to people like Bongino. I liked him, right?
But with ShadowNet, how was it built? Was it a program? Was it a software loaded onto a computer? Was it hardware? Like what was it? Was it both? Was it both a software component and a hardware component?
Okay. Well, it's two different things, right?
Okay.
You got the ShadowNet and you got iSci. And if you look at the flyer, it actually lays them both out, right? So ShadowNet is the anonymity, non-attribution, right? And then iSci is like the database, the profile collection, if you're going to be one person in managing 5 or 10 different fake personas, and I'm not talking about the stupid Russian bot crap that didn't impact shit. What I'm talking about are extremely expensive, extremely detailed profiles, right? Okay, so let's say that I want my profile to look like it's coming from, wherever, Detroit, let's say. Well, I will have a profile that's not only from Detroit, a persona, right? But so that's all in the iSci component, the database component. I would then use the ShadowNet to make it look like I was coming from wherever I wanted it to look like I was coming from, right? Because if you're a terrorist overseas, or if you're a pedophile in the U.S. and you are working on the dark web or something, trying to exploit children or whatever you wanted to do, you can see where people are coming from, right? So you need to have the all the things match up and look perfect, right? So that nobody, even the quote unquote 17 intelligence agencies, and there weren't 17 intelligence agencies, but quote unquote the 17 intelligence agencies could not tell if it was me sitting on a beach in Florida or me sending it from the Kremlin, right? So, maybe they could after a couple years. But so when the FBI comes out and 17 intelligence agencies after a few days and says they have high confidence that it was from Russia, well, why even say that? Because I can make it look like it was coming from Russia. Israel could make it look like it's coming from Russia. China could make it look like it's coming from Russia. And if you were the ones actually doing it, what's the last place you would make it look like you were coming from?
Yeah.
Russia. If you were Russia doing it, putting breadcrumbs leading it back to Russia, I mean, please explain to me the PSYOP logic behind that. It doesn't exist, right? So when I see something that says, oh, breadcrumbs lead us to here, I say, well, that's telling you where it didn't come from, right?
Mm-hmm.
So explain, have anybody ask that? Have anybody answer that question? How can you put out that you have confidence? How can you blame Russia within days? How wrong, how inappropriate for Hillary Clinton or the DNC or anybody out there. And I'm not sitting here trying to help Russia in any way. My second wife was Russian, but we were married like 2 weeks. How could anybody sit there and say with a straight face that it was Russia when you know damn well people like me can make it look like that, and there's no way you can tell because I've literally tested it against people within those organizations that would be looking for it. How can you say that with a straight face? Yeah. And they all do, but they all know. They're lying to you. Every single one in Congress, I think, is just lying to you. And, you know,
I agree with you. Both the right and the left, it doesn't matter. Yeah. They're all lying to you.
Yeah. If they've been in office more than one term, they're already crooked.
Yep.
Right? Yep. They've already had to sacrifice any beliefs or morals that they had going in to be able to win that second term. Because if they didn't, powerful people would have ran the opposition against you and you would have been gone.
So ShadowNet itself is a program, right? It is a software component. Right,
ISI is a relational database,
okay,
which is an application, originally written just ASPX. And ShadowNet is a combination of VMs, VMware, right? Mm-hmm. So you can launch a VM, a virtual computer.
Virtual machine.
A virtual machine in your on your like laptop or desktop anywhere in the world, right? Because it's actually being run from another server. You can launch that desktop, and let's say I wanted to make it look like I was running Windows 95, right? Mm-hmm. Because I'm trying to communicate with someone in a cave in Afghanistan that's not going to have a Windows, licensed Windows 98 at the time, or Windows XP or whatever, right? So obviously these are going to be things, if they see that you have like a licensed copy of something and you're in a country where like pretty much everybody there is so poor, all they're using are pirated copies. So you can launch a VM in whatever operating system you want with whatever browser you want to use. And through your browser, once you open that VM through your browser, you have a selection of all locations that you might want to appear that you're coming from. And these aren't just using like Tor, right? Like yes. The Onion router. These are using, these are using literally professional companies, commercial companies that get paid huge sums of money to put proxies anywhere that you want. Right? I'm not going to say the name of the company until I get in front of Congress, but or until I get in front of an intelligence committee. But so that's how you do it, right? It's two different things. So it's a relational database with ISI, right?
Yeah.
Where you use the analytics, the build predictive analytics, and understand what makes your target. If you want a target to move left, what is it going to take to make him move left? If you want him to move right, what's it going to take to make him move right? And you can't just force him to move right, like with handcuffs. You gotta go to his friends, right? Mm-hmm. Influence his friends and have his friends move him to the left or to the right. You never go right at your target. And in fact, that's exactly, if you pull up the side group proposal that Bannon and Manafort tried to sell to the Trump campaign, but they rejected. If you look at that, that's exactly what they do, right? Which Psy Group, that's why I say, I believe in my heart, in my opinion, Psy Group is ISI, right? And Wikistrat,
Did Roger
which is
Stone
also,
did Roger Stone have any involvement with that?
I don't know. That's a great question, right?
Because
Great
Roger Stone, I myself am not a fan of Mr. Stone, the dirty trickster, or Paul Manafort. Neither one
I
of them.
actually like Stone. Some of the stuff he's done, I really appreciate in Florida.
Yeah.
He's helped with a lot of things in Florida, right?
The reason why
can I say something
go ahead.
really quick that's very important?
Yeah.
Alex Jones came out on did an interview with Roger Stone on Sunday.
Yes.
And just every word that came out of Jones's mouth was a lie. And I mean, it's like and you can verify it, right? Because the things, you can just go back and play my interview with him, and you'll see that nothing I said jives with what he claimed. He said that I've been running around saying that Roger Stone is like the kingpin, the head of the deep state. No. At best, I've claimed Roger was like a quote-unquote useful idiot, right?
I think he was more than that, in my opinion, but go ahead.
Well, maybe, but I've never considered it more than that. Mm-hmm. And even that is speculation. I do know, because I spoke to Roger Stone, George Colella was there as well, and he actually responded to a tweet to back up what I said about that. He was there, right? So I asked Roger Stone, do you have a relationship with General Jones and his son Jim? Yeah. I'm like, have you ever worked with Dynology? He said, yeah, right. And then I asked him, I said, did you ever work? Have you ever heard of the Shadow Net? Mm-hmm. And he's like, no. And then he ended up going off like really quick. Okay.
Interesting.
Maybe he has. But I want him to answer those questions, not like to me or me with one other person, but to like on a broadcast, right? Mm-hmm. What a great opportunity. Mm-hmm. Say, no, I didn't. But what he said was, so Jones is sitting there saying that I'm saying these things that I never, ever, ever said. Literally, if you listen to me on his show, I say, I don't know what Stone's involvement was. Mm-hmm. I just these are questions that I have that I would like to get answered.
Which are
that I'm
questions?
Looking for answers
to. They're honest questions.
Yeah. When someone says, these are just questions I have that I'm seeking answers for, that's not me running around saying that he's like a kingpin, right? I'm like, oh my God, why would you say this? Why would you do that? Oh my God. So I wanted to just make that point real quick. I have no idea. And Roger Stone was actually like really nice to me. Mm-hmm. He said, yeah, I've met with Bergy, and it seems like he's legitimate. It seems like, what he's saying might actually be, he's worked in the intelligence community. Seems like he might have something here. But he said, but I'm not the kingpin of it. And I'm like, I never said that.
Yeah.
But one person that is undeniable. Now, and also he said, he never answered whether or not he worked with Dynology, mm-hmm. right? He said, I haven't worked with Manafort in 30 years. Well, that wasn't my question.
Yeah.
Because I know for a fact, you can go to Google's Wayback Machine. Paul Manafort's website specifically said that specifically listed Dynology out of alphabetical order as his number one partner, right? So I think we can all confirm that, yeah, he has and that was in like 2008, right? At the same time, he and Dynology were both working IT, micro-targeted social media for John McCain's campaign.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a Republican, are you okay with that? I'm not talking about helping him beat Obama. I'm talking about helping him beat every other Republican that ran against him.
No. So I mean, I'm not a fan of McCain, so no.
No. But if you ran against McCain in 2008 in the primary, right?
Yes.
And you lost to him, and you found out that he was using the ShatterNet, would you be a little pissed?
Yeah, I would. I
Right?
would be upset.
Seems logical. Why isn't people pissed about this? Because they say, oh, well, all they think is, oh, well, maybe it helped us win beat Obama. Or no, I mean, maybe it helped us win with Trump or something. No.
Yeah.
And then how does John McCain's IT security company, the owner of his IT security company, end up becoming his opponents that he lost to, his national security advisor? Doesn't anybody find that? I mean, I get it. Politics makes for strange bedfellows.
Mm-hmm.
But that's actually, isn't that like extremely like questionably ethical? I mean, he was, and keep in mind, after Dynology no longer had the IT security contract for the McCain campaign, because after the primary, Manafort's company, 3EDC, took that over. That was when the both the RNC and Obama's emails, both McCain's and Obama's campaign emails were hacked.
Yeah.
Right after that.
Yeah.
That's interesting, right?
Yeah, it is.
Am I convicting someone of something? No.
You just got questions.
Yes.
Yeah, questions
And
facts.
these are questions. Why doesn't anybody want to answer those or ask them? Right? What's so hard in that? What's more important? Finding out something that you can use to trash Millie and Gavin or Tory, or finding out what happened with that scenario that I just laid out to you, or any of the other scenarios that I've laid out to you? What seems more important if you are truly someone seeking the truth and trying to help your country and wanting to be a good person and not just a sack of crap, right? What is that? It just seems logical to me. Again, I'm sorry.
I mean, it's my belief that Alex Jones, I mean, he's a member of a group that a lot of these people are members of, known as the Council for National Policy. Many people that you've named, whether it was Dan Bongino, whether it is Michael Flynn, many people that we've discussed today, the Mercers. I mean, I could, name the list, and a lot of people Alex Jones have had on, like Jerome Corsi, and Jerome Corsi was part of the InfoWars Bureau to talk in D.C., and there's actually a redacted FBI document that says that Roger Stone was working directly with Jerome Corsi in behest of Israel and Bibi Netanyahu for the Trump campaign. And I voted for Trump in 2016 myself. I'm a registered Republican.
Take that, what you just said there, and keep in mind that Joel Zamel, his offices in Israel were raided by the FBI for his connection to Cambridge Analytica.
Yep.
And to other things, right? For that type of stuff. Social media information warfare,
and the Black Cube connections to Cambridge too, as well.
And so that he's the owner of Wikistrat and Psy Group, and General Jones and General Hayden, not big fans of Trump, sit on the board of Wikistrat, right? So I don't know what Stone's angle is with that, whether he was involved with that or not, but his name just keeps popping up with all of these people, with all of these, and he's actually proud of doing that type of work, right?
Yeah,
it's kind of his shtick. So whether or not he was, what they described there with Jerome Corsi is IIA-IO, right? IIA is not like the end-all be-all. IIA is merely a supporting component, right? IIA supports CNO, computer network operations, like hacking, stuff like that, and it supports that for information operations. So IIA and CNO support IO, right? So IO is at the top, information operations. IIA support and CNO support those, right? So if you have like let's say you wanted to steal the emails, right? Steal Hillary's DNC emails. Well, and then disseminate them, right, online.
Yes.
In a way that is not going to ever come back to you. That's kind of important, right? Then you need both of those components. You need CNO, computer network operations. You need a CNO team, and you need an IIA team. The CNO team gets the emails, and the IIA team disseminates them in such a fashion that it's non-attributable. It doesn't come back to you. Is that how you want your life to be lived? Is that how you want your next president to be chosen?
No, I don't.
Is that how you want lobbies to be operating in D.C.?
Oh,
is that how you want legislation to be passed?
No, because it's covert instead of overt. It's not in your face. It's using tactics for. I mean, that's what Cambridge Analytica did. It manipulated people. Granted, used by the Trump campaign to manipulate people's votes on Facebook.
The big. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, and I was saying is, and I fell for it. I myself am a conservative Christian. And I believe in MAGA. I believe in make America great again. And cool. and I a lot of the tenets that Trump pushed, especially during the campaign, I really resonated with. And it's these tactics that switch back and forth. Cambridge. The tactics that are be using by Cambridge now are now used. That my only issue, I would say, Bergy, with the documentary, and I'm not putting this on you, was that everyone's involved in this, in my opinion, both the right and the left, and there were people that were left out, and there was a slant to it, and that's my only issue as far as the documentary itself. I can
answer that, right? I can answer that.
And do you think that's a fair criticism too?
Gavin, I stopped by there on my trek across America around the weekend of the 4th of July. We went out and saw fireworks and stuff, had a great time. That's when I met Tori, right? We all went out to this farm where they were setting off fireworks. And then Tori went back to Cleveland, and I stayed at Millie and Gavin's place for a couple days and did my interview with them, hung out, shot raccoons. That was awesome. I hit a raccoon from 175 feet out with a 380 ACP, my little pistol.
I am from the South, so I have shot some raccoons and possums in my life. So yes.
Right? and people say, "Oh, he hates raccoons." No, I love chickens. The raccoons were killing the chickens.
Yeah.
So I'm a chicken lover. So, well, that didn't come out right.
I know you didn't. I know what you're meant.
I got a sense of humor too, in case you haven't noticed. You got to have a sense of humor with this crap, or it would destroy you. I swear to God, right? So, no, and then I took off, but he was working on it. Him and a couple other guys. Millie's brother, right? All three people that were taken that day by the police were all working on that. So it's like, I think they wanted to. I think they got there just a few minutes late. There was a problem. I can't say specifically what it was, but there was a problem like a couple weeks into it, and apparently they lost everything that they had been working on with the documentary. And so Gavin had to go in and basically redo everything from scratch, and he redid it kind of quickly. So if there are things that were missing out of there, it may not have been that you would have. I'm sure I can tell you right now for a fact, there's a lot of stuff that Gavin would have loved to have had more time to do, and maybe we can do another thing down the road again. I really got to in the short time I knew Gavin, I found him to be good people. He's really smart, and I I don't know him that well, but you meet people, and I'm usually pretty good at profiling people, behavioral and stuff. And I thought that Millie and Gavin were good people, but we had, so I did that, and I just don't think he had as much. I just know for a fact he wanted to put a lot more in there.
Mm-hmm.
I know he wanted to put stuff in there like with Judge Janine and Sarah Carter and these other. He wanted to. I think maybe he may have made a decision not to, or not to. I don't know, but I also know he did a tremendous amount of work in a very short period of time. Mm-hmm. Right? He really wanted. There was a lot more, and if you sat down with Gavin for a few minutes, and he would probably agree, I think, with everything that I just said, as far as like things that you would have liked to have seen. I can almost assure you, Gavin, if he would have had time, he probably would have wanted to do that.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're going to have to make decisions on what actually goes in and what doesn't. If you put too much in, you're going to lose the audience.
That's true.
I actually think he did a really good job, considering he did it and then had to redo the whole thing, right? Pretty impressive.
So, Patrick, I guess one thing, have you heard that Stanley McChrystal and General Michael Flynn are very good friends, so much so in the fact that Flynn started Flynn Group in Stanley McChrystal's garage?
Well, I know, no, I didn't hear that, but did you know that I think one of the Flynns were one of the people that met with Jamal Khashoggi in January of 2017, before the inauguration, and met with Khashoggi about something related to influence operations with Iran, if I'm not mistaken. Something I've actually put those presentations together before, been flown out all over the place to do presentations very similar to that. So I actually think I have a pretty good idea exactly what the room looked like and what was being said, to be honest with you, based on everything that I've seen that it was about. And if that's the case, based on other things, Khashoggi was a quote unquote journalist for the Washington Post. I'm coming out and saying that as a subject matter expert in IIA, everything that I've seen about Khashoggi tells me that he was an IIA asset, right? A contractor. So he worked for WAPO, but he had a second job as a contractor. What type of remuneration, if any, I don't know. I'm just saying, if you look at his history, and you look at what they were talking about when they were meeting, I think he met with Flynn, didn't he? Like either his son.
It is my belief that I gotta go. I'll Google it right now, and if anybody in the chat knows, I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. If you could Google that, I don't want to be wrong about that, but I think maybe he might have been involved with that. What does that do? That ties someone to, in my opinion, a meeting on IIA. And what was Jerome Corsi and Stone being accused of? Talking about, or in a meeting of, or discussing IIA, covert influence operations.
So it says there's a Saudi intelligence official fined for his alleged involvement in the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, met in early 2017 with possibly Michael Flynn, Joel Zamel, and Ahmed El Asari.
There you go. Now, let me throw this one out to you, right? I went to Washington Post, WAPO. I worked with Craig Timberg back and forth through emails and on like Snapchat or whatever. And I worked with them for several weeks. Actually, several people. I can't remember, but a couple of really big people at Washington Post. And after several weeks, they came back to me and said, oh, we really don't have the budget to investigate this fully, so we're just going to not run it. Okay, well, hey, at least they didn't just screw me like Sarah Carter did and never call me back. At least they gave me some bullshit answer. That's better than nothing. I'm always good for the reach around, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's, I would argue, Khashoggi was still alive when I spoke to them, and had they actually done this story and exposed everything that was going on, if in fact that was the case, would Khashoggi be chopped up in Louis Vuitton luggage right now?
Probably
I don't
not.
think so.
No.
And the Louis Vuitton luggage was a nice touch, wasn't it?
Yeah, and of course,
if I'm going to get murdered, chopped up, please do not put me in Samsonite.
You want to be put in Louis Vuitton luggage,
right?
You want to go out with style and flair, huh?
Once again, you couldn't laugh, you'd have to cry. But aren't these legitimate questions that you think maybe you'd like some answers to?
They are. I mean,
it's my area, it's my field. I see these things where other people probably don't see them.
Yeah, so the people that were there, at that meeting, was like mentioned earlier, Flynn, Joel Zamel, as well as George Nader, who was convicted recently.
Yeah.
And Steve.
Isn't he?
Yes, yes, and child rapist George Nader is, and Steve Bannon, who's Steve Bannon again, Cambridge Analytica. Counts for National Policy. Again, it happens to be that way.
Yeah.
So
you can keep telling me that Flynn's a good guy, and the jury's still out on me with that.
Yeah.
I don't just assume. I don't trust anybody. I'm sorry. And if you are a retired general and you didn't go and retire in Florida, opening up like a bar or cafe, then I kind of think that you're probably one of them. I kind of think you're probably utilizing the influence that you achieved from us.
Mm-hmm.
We gave you that power. And then you turned around when you got done and you monetized it, right? And everybody's coming out telling me, well, he's in on this big thing. Well, maybe he is. I don't know either way. But it's kind of everybody else that I've seen was just in it for the money, right? So they left their job and they used their influence to monetize it, making weapons.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I'm not just going to jump on that train with anybody, right? So
I want to thank you. I want to thank you, Patrick, for coming on, sir, and I want to thank you for your service too, as well. I have one quick question.
Protecting, kind of not protecting, but standing up for like Millie and Galvin, at least saying, "Hey, wait, let's take a look," right?
I wish
you didn't jump on that wagon.
I wish I would have talked to you months ago. Actually, I wish I would have. Actually, 6 months ago. You were always on my list to talk to, sir, and I wish I would have gone along. I would have done it sooner. Because one last question, I guess, is it's a two-parter. One, do you know what year ShadowNet was developed? And there was another question: do you think the QAnon phenomenon is IIA? With them pushing QAnon heavily on Twitter with bots and everything, do you think that is an IIA operation? And what year do you know of ShadowNet? What year was it developed?
We started the contract October 2007, and I think the IIA policy guidelines were first submitted like April, May of 2007. So I believe, it really started there when I say we did pioneering work. There may have been Navy contracts or somebody else that was doing them also. But to my knowledge, we were like one of the first. So that's probably when it would have started. And the ShadowNet itself, you can see I've actually put a screenshot of the actual application itself.
Yes.
It says copyright Dynology 2009, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which, okay, what was General Jones doing in 2009?
I don't know offhand, sir.
He was being sworn in as Obama's national security advisor.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So you look at his company, Dynology, and you look at the copyright 2009, and doesn't that nobody's like, oh, okay, I guess that's perfectly fine having the, and Dynology started in 2000, which again, when if that's correct, then Stone would have, and he said that Stone told me that he had worked with Dynology, then that would have been any time between 2000 and now, not 30 years ago, right? That would have been actually somewhat recent. So that's when it started. That's when the ShadowNet started, and then ClearForce, like I said, was launched in 2013 when after Snowden did his thing.
And do you think QAnon is an IA operation?
I don't know, right?
Okay.
It very well could be. It would be a good one if it was, but I don't think so. I mean, it uses anonymity, right? Obviously, because they haven't caught the Q itself, right? Whoever it is has an advanced ability, an advanced skill at anonymity and non-attribution, probably like at my level, right? So you would have to say that it would have to be, I mean, some kid sitting in his basement is not going to have the resources. Like I said, you don't use Tor or something like that to do that. You actually use very advanced resources where you actually have people put small proxies wherever you need them. And so I kind of like what it's doing. I'm a big fan of chaos theory, and I like what the Q movement has turned into. They don't trust the government. And
they trust conservatives. That's the thing, is it's not really bipartisan, in my opinion.
I know a lot of Q people. Shout out to Sandy. I don't follow Q at all, right? I mean, at all. So I couldn't tell you either way. I know a lot of really good people that follow it, and the people that I know that follow it, they don't just follow it because it's conservative. They follow it because it's corruption, and they're sick of it. If it's corruption,
well, I am too. I'm sick of it as well, and I understand there's good, honest patriots who believe in Q. But I will say I have witnessed an operation where anybody who starts talking about Q, they start getting major numbers, but only on their videos on YouTube where they're discussing Q. If you look at, because if you look at my videos, it has a consistent view of people going back and looking at my videos once they become fans of my work. Okay, the same with Mark from Houstonic Live, same with general channels. But I call it the Q bump. Once someone starts talking about Q, those videos get huge numbers. I mean, within a matter of hours. Okay, and then when you look to see, well, did they look at people's other information of other things that they had covered previously beforehand? Even you think pro-Trump stuff, right? That would get a bump, right? Nothing. So that makes me believe that it might be an IIA operation to some degree.
Hey, I got to give a quick shout out to Mark at Houstonic.
Me too as well. Shout out to Mark.
I got to do another interview with him. He's an IT guy. So I can sit there and talk to him, and he understands VMs. He understands the backbone of it. And he's also been very respectful, I think, of this process. I haven't been able to follow everything very much because I've been on I'm almost to DC right now, but I've driven on Harley, which is hard. Right, it's a long, hard ride from Austin, Texas, to DC, right?
And the sweltering heat. I've lived in the South all my life, sir. Grew up here out in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I trust me, 9,500 degrees.
Second. So I can't, I can't follow stuff. I'm doing my best to reply to people and thank people as much as I can, but I'm on the road all day. 4 hours on a bike where your feet are on the peg, and my feet are all jacked up from basic training, right? Yeah. So it's a long ride. I can't follow everything a lot, but I do. What I saw, at least from the initially, was that Mark was just being very professional.
Yes.
Right. and I didn't expect anything less because Mark, he said he was going to do when he did my interview with him a couple years ago, I think. He said that everybody who does the interview with me was going to he was going to split whatever we raised from that. I actually just did that for this amazing woman that I ran into in Dallas, Verona, and her husband, and we raised like $100. It wasn't much, but he turned around and actually sent me the money, right? A couple other people said that they were going to do that, and I'm not going to name names, right? And then they turned around and never sent the money, right? Which I don't want the money.
Yeah.
I'll give it. I put a book out, and like anything that I raise from that, we're putting any profits that come from that after the expenses of the books and stuff are going to help us build our veterans nonprofit, SafeVet, right? SafeVet.org. It's a work in progress, right? And this has me all tied up. I need help with that, and I'm starting to get some help with it. But I use anything I collect from that. I use, right?
Yes.
I live off of my VA. That's it, right? Right now, because of the issues that I have.
Yes. So you are disabled veteran, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not much, right?
No, it's not. No.
But I don't if I get something, like it goes to help. It goes to like gas or a hotel room. And actually, I was conserving money so much, I brought a tent with me, and many times several nights I've actually just found like a campground.
You gotta be careful with everything going on, sir. You gotta be careful, right? With all the everything, all the strife that's been going on. You gotta be careful.
Oh yeah. Well, I actually like this stuff, right? So I don't worry about I'm not like it when it comes to like putting myself in situations or something. You'll find that like a lot of people that have spent like years in combat zones, they actually miss it. Yeah. And so, as nerve-wracking as that was, like when I'm on the phone with Gavin as the cops are showing up, right? And I'm listening to it. He puts it on speaker, and then he kind of sat the phone aside so I could still hear him talking, right? Up until they took his phone away from him and shut it off. But I love that rush, right? It's like, ooh, it's on now.
Yeah.
Things are getting real.
Yeah, it brings you back, huh?
It's not good. So I'm not worried about these things as far as that goes. I'll handle myself, and no, we're not guaranteed tomorrow.
That is
all,
true.
Right?
That is true.
We just have today, and that's why I kind of end it with that, with saying, you have me here today, right now.
Yes.
If you can put aside all of the other things, and help me with this, help me in DC, like we're putting together a rally. If we could get enough people to that are sick and tired of having their data stolen or having their data used by a company like ClearForce, like having Obama's national security advisor and the head of his CIA determining if you get your next job or you lose a job that you're working on now. If you have a problem with that, come on out and join me, because if we could get enough numbers, then when I walk into that office and say, hey, you remember me? They're going to go, oh, shit, yeah, we do. And they're going to do something, right? Yeah. If I walk in there by myself again, they're going to keep just doing what they do, right? So you got today to do these things, not tomorrow. You got today to act on these things. Don't keep wasting today, right?
So one very last question, and I'll let you go. Thank you for the time.
Sure.
How do you feel about Jack Posobiec? People are asking in the chats. Now, I'm not a fan of Jack Posobiec. He is Steve Bannon's second in command. Okay, and then of course Steve Bannon also is worked, helped fund Cambridge Analytica with the Mercers, and the Mercers actually also fund Rebel Media too, with Ezra Levant, interestingly enough. But how do you I don't like Posobiec. I don't like him at all. He's former Navy intelligence. He seems to me to be.
He wasn't Navy intelligence. He was Navy PAO and Navy intelligence.
Oh, okay, he was both. Okay.
And IIA supports PAO.
Interesting.
Okay, look at and I'm not classified there. Look at the IIA policy memorandum. It literally states how IIA is allowed to interact with the PAO and how they're allowed to interact with even commercial news, right?
Yes.
Like commercial journalists. And if you read the IIA document, you could reach out to a Bongino just at his level, right? No problem. But if you're going to put an IIA project together with someone like Pirro, for example, at a much higher level, in like Fox News, then you need to have a 06 or above sign off on the memorandum. It's not impossible. There's always a memorandum that an 06 or above can sign to fix that problem, right? So, Posobiec is Navy PAO. IIA supports PAO. On this last note, ShadowNet Enterprise, and I don't know if it's the same one, but I kind of think if it is not the same one, then there's some serious trademark violations going on. Excuse me, but I put out a thing from Army Times showing that ShadowNet Enterprise is being deployed out nationwide through our National Guard. So, can you tell me something?
Yes.
Is Posobiec National Guard? Well, these are all just facts, right?
Yeah. Well, I could tell with
facts. I'm not saying he's an IIA asset, but if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, and smells like a duck, it's probably a freaking duck.
He always shows up in those nice pictures, at Antifa rallies, we're in the right place in the right time, and always going over to China,
And someone that he used to work with, not Gavin and Millie, right? Someone that he used to work with that was like very tight in their little gang of three, whatever they called that back in 2016. I can't remember what their little three amigos or something. But somebody that worked very close with them, helping them, said that they quit working with them because nobody could tell them where the money was coming from that was funding it. Wish somebody would ask Jack that question. See if it's true or not. That's third party. Somebody called me and told me that. But I can tell you right now, it's a very, very close source. Wouldn't you like to know that? Don't you think somebody might want to ask Jack that?
Yeah. But, it'd be interesting to see.
And I met at Trump Hotel with Chanel Rion, the little hottie with AFN. And I told her, I sat down with her, I think her husband, and handed him my key tam, went through everything, and they never did a damn thing. Actually, she won't even respond to me now. So, there you go. You make up your own decisions. I just tell you the facts, and I can support the facts with emails, whatever you want.
I'd say probably with One American News Network, it's probably a better thing for your credibility than it did.
I'm thinking, if you were to pay me as a subject matter expert to stand up an IIA operation, I've stood them up. I've stood up massive IIA operations that would blow your mind, right?
And Jack Posobiec was also promoted by InfoWars a lot too. So
what's that?
Jack Posobiec was bid on InfoWars and has been promoted by Alex Jones a lot too. So
Yeah, there you go. I imagine. Can you imagine? See, keep this in mind. To the best of my knowledge, Alex Jones had heard a little bit about this,
hmm
but they were really waiting to sit down and have like a conversation once they sent it to him, and he got to see the documentary, and he never saw the documentary. The cops showed up. He had already sent like a copy of it for safekeeping to Tori, and then Tori just uploads it.
hmm
And he yelled. I heard him yell to upload it, and he uh, let's see what happens with that. I don't think Alex Jones personally, my own opinion, not facts or anything. Again, my opinion. I'm wondering if that documentary would have ever seen the day of light if Alex had had a chance to see it and the cops hadn't showed up.
Hmm.
Because, and based on his response, I would say probably not, right? Not because of anything being inaccurate with that, but because
Well, Roger Stone
they had,
being implicated,
yeah, a
be,
lot of
being
people,
discussed.
yeah, General Jones. It seems to me as though he was even talking nice and defending General Jones, right?
hmm
When he has a whistleblower, and it kind of pissed me off because Alex Jones said, well, just because he's got like a Bikers for 45 patch on doesn't mean on the front of his vest doesn't mean that you should just immediately trust him. And I responded back with a picture of my cut with me holding up an American flag and a Trump flag
hmm
from the back that has Afghanistan veteran on the back, right? And I responded to, and I put out in my tweet, I said, no, Alex, that's the patch that people should look at and make their determination on whether or not this person is credible. Not the Bikers for 45. I love the Bikers for 45 patch. But the one that you should look at for credibility is the one on the back that says this man served our country. And so did General Jones. He served our country too. That doesn't mean you're a good guy
Yes.
for serving your country, but it should at least give you the benefit of the doubt and have someone, when you raise a very serious charge, you can look at my resume and the people I worked for and the things that I did, and if you don't listen, if you don't take seriously signed, sworn complaints going back to 2015, then our country's screwed, man.
Yeah.
We're screwed. If this is the best we can do, if attacking Millie and Gavin's the best that our humanity can do, we're screwed. Our country's screwed.
Well, thank you for coming on, Patrick, Mr. Bergy.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to have this interview with me. And
thank you very much. It's the first interview I think I've done since my interview with Alex Jones, which was kind of a nightmare. Nobody even knew that I was going to go there. I just kind of panicked, I had figured out the address online, right? But I had been told not to go there. Even they wouldn't even confirm whether or not that was the address because they have
That's
NDAs.
Interesting. Yeah.
Well, they have NDAs. They wouldn't even confirm that was the address. They said, don't go there until we've had a chance to show them this. And so, when I'm sitting there on the phone with Gavin and the cops came and got him, I'm thinking I'm next, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, shit, what do I do? I'm in Austin all by myself in a hotel room. Cops could be knocking on the door any minute. So I jumped on my bike and went over to the address and just started knocking on doors. And then I got the right one. And they were like, nice as could be. Well, did the interview with him. I thought the interview went great. His assistant gave me her number, said, here, if you need anything, let me know, right? And then, which I texted her back a little bit later. And the security guard walked me to my bike just to make sure that nobody tried to do anything funny to me on the way out. How cool was that, right?
Yeah.
So, and then to have Alex Jones do that, you behave like that to me and throw me under the bus like the next day, it just makes no sense to me, man. I actually thought that maybe he was somebody. I came there really to find out. Like I said, I got to meet people, shake their hand, and see them and see how they react. And I came there basically to find out if Alex Jones was a good guy or a bad guy. I didn't know. It was kind of steering towards a good guy, right?
Yeah.
Hell, Gavin and his contractors are helping me put this video together that Fox or nobody else would touch, right? This story. But yet he turns around and behaves like that, throws me under the bus, throws Millie and Gavin under the bus. That, you take that data and you analyze that, and it comes up with a bad guy, not a good guy. So that kind of sucked. But I have my answer now. And I didn't go there with like elevated expectations, trust me. I managed my expectations with that, but I was still disappointed with how he behaved.
Yeah.
I really was.
I mean, Alex Jones is part of that Council for National Policy Nexus that Bannon is a member of, and Flynn and many others. So it doesn't surprise me, and Dan Bongino. It doesn't surprise me in that regard.
Yeah,
not
at all. So again, maybe give Gavin and Millie a little credit for risking their careers, for risking their family and their lives. Whatever their past might be, what they did, in my opinion, makes them one of the greatest patriots that I've met. They really are. So that's my opinion. Whatever it counts for, I don't know. But I'm gonna stick to that. I'm gonna say it as loud as I can to anybody who wants to listen. And I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you giving me this time.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you for your service too as well, sir. Hopefully we will have you on again to interview you. But thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Stay on for a second if you don't mind, real quick.
Okay.
Sure. Take care, everybody out there. Hope you